centric policy which keeps the learners at the center, and it is very flexible, progressive, and has a futuristic approach. So we're all very hopeful that it will somewhere standardize the education system, because most of the points, if we see, every progressive school has already implemented them. It is actually reaching out to the ones who still to do a lot in this field. So I would request Mr. Rajul Pratap to kindly share the vision behind these leadership talks and introduce the eminent speakers who are there with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Rocky ma'am. So now, as you all know, that these sessions are being organized by India International Education Council and School Lalaji Solutions. India International Education Council is a not-for-profit organization which is working in the field of education. It has collaborators from 12 countries. It aims to create a better world through education. It also aims to build quality centers for elementary education, which are approachable for all kids, finding best educational practices across the globe and find ways to implement those in Indian institutions, creating more awareness on hygiene and learning disabilities. It publishes a magazine called World Education Review and many other educational reports. It aims to build chapters in different cities by 2022. It will soon open its membership for institutions and individuals. It also imparts training for leaders, teachers, students, and parents. So, as you all know, that this is our 100th session. So far, we have conducted 99 sessions. We have received 9,489 registrations, 8,391 questions. We have seen participants from 5 countries: India, USA, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Nepal. From India, we have seen participation from 19 states and 83 cities. We aim to organize 200 sessions. With this, we would be reaching out to 100,000 educators, 20,000 institutions, and 1,000 plus eminent speakers like today's speakers will be joining us to share their perspective on national education policy. So, with this, I would request you all please join me in welcoming our key speakers for this very special session. Our moderator for the session, Rakhi Verma ma'am. Rakhi ma'am has 17 plus years of experience in the field of education. She has been a university gold medalist in postgraduate diploma in school leadership and management from IGNOU. She has been a recipient of Global Teacher Accreditation from British Council. She has served as principal of Ryan International School, Gurugram, and Heritage Global School, Faridabad. She is also a CBSE resource person for capacity building programs. She has presented a paper in an international conference on teaching and learning at Wagner College, New York. She has been the recipient of various recognitions in the field of education like Guru Drona Award, Shiksha Ratna Award, Indian School Award, International School Award. Thank you, Rakhi ma'am, for giving your leadership for these leadership talk sessions. We welcome your participation. We are honored with your presence. Thank you. Our next key speaker, Lieutenant General Suren Kulkarni sir. In fact, needs no introduction. He's the director with the Mayo College, Ajmer, Rajasthan. Kulkarni sir has served the Indian Army for about 4 decades. He was commissioned into the Armored Corps in 1975. In recognition of his special contribution, he has been awarded the highest peacetime distinguished service award, the Padam Vishist Seva Medal, by the President of India. He's an economics graduate from Ferguson College, Pune. He was postgraduate UGC Merit Scholar before he joined Army. He has 4 master's degree, including an MPhil degree. He's an alumnus of Mayo College, Ajmer. We are honored with your presence, Kulkarni sir. Thank you for joining. It's a huge honor. Our next key speaker, Dr. Deepak Modokji. In fact, I believe all the key speakers of today needs no introduction, but I would do this because it's part of the protocol. So Deepak sir is the chairman with the Sunbeam Group, Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. He's the founder of Jago Banaras, which is a Samajik Chetna group of like-minded people with love and care for humanity. He's also the director with the DHK EduServe Limited, which is a corporate setup to augment education pan-India. He's also the founder chairman of Purvanchal Schools Welfare Association, which is an association of CBSE and ICSE schools of the region with a unified, coherent vision of catering quality and affordable education to the mass. He's also the patron with SMACE Varanasi chapter. He has a postgraduate degree in biochemistry from Allahabad University. He subsequently joined the provincial civil services of the state as an administrative officer in June 1979. His versatility as an administrator was ably reflected in a span of 11 years, where he held various coveted posts of assistant deputy administrator of municipal corporation Varanasi, among many others. He was enlisted as an IAS promoted by Government of India. Under his able guidance and leadership, Sunbeam Group now comprises 7 schools affiliated to CBSE, 2 women's college offering graduate programs, and 17 associate schools under the banner of DHK EduServe Limited spread across the state of Uttar Pradesh. We are honored with your presence, Deepak sir. Thank you for joining. Our next key speaker, Padmini Subshivam ma'am. Padmini ma'am is principal with Belem Girls School, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. As a student, she was consistently ranked among the top 3 and was a recipient of National Merit Scholarship. She graduated with a major in zoology from Stella Maris College, which is a premium institution in Chennai. Her deep interest in research and sciences spurred her on to acquire a master's degree in environmental toxicology from the Postgraduate Institute of Basic Medical Sciences, University of Madras. Samba Sivam ma'am started her career in 1996 as a teacher with the Bala Vidya Mandir, which is a very reputed institute school in Chennai. In less than 7 years, she rose to become the founder principal of Arsha Vidya Mandir. In the year 2010, Samba Sivam ma'am moved on to take on assignment in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where she worked in the capacity of Director Academics for the Pevis Group. She's the recipient of several awards and honors like the Distinguished Service Award, Exemplary Leadership Award, and Best Teacher Award, to mention a few. We are truly honored with your presence, Padmini ma'am. Thank you for joining. Our key speaker, Neeraj Birotia sir. Neeraj sir is principal with the Delhi College, Indore, Madhya Pradesh. Neeraj sir has more than 3 decades of experience in the field of education. He is known for his dynamism, commitment to the process and purpose of education. In all his instance as head of totaling 20 years, he has provided exceptional educational opportunities for the young. Mr. Birotia stands for integrity, courage, and democratic values. Birotia ji has had an excellent academic record as a student, always amongst the top notches. He has been a university gold medalist twice, MSc and MPhil. Before joining Delhi College as the principal in 2017, Birotia ji has had an illustrious career with prestigious institutions like Doon School, Marlborough College, United Kingdom, founder principal of Asian School, Dehradun, principal of Raja Ram Mohan Rai Academy, Dehradun, principal of Mayur School, Ajmer, under the aegis of Mayo College General Council. He was also instrumental in setting up franchises of Mayur schools in Jodhpur, Raipur, Sri Ganganagar, and Abu Dhabi. Neeraj has been proud recipient of 2 highly coveted awards. One was the CBSE's Award for Excellence as a teacher in 2010, which was presented by then Union Minister of HRD, Kapil Sibalji. Other was the President's Award for Outstanding Contribution to Education in 2015, which was presented by His Excellency, then President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, in Delhi. We welcome you, Neeraj sir. Thank you for joining. Your presence is a huge honor. Our next key speaker, Dr. Pankaj Sharma ji. Dr. Pankaj Sharma ji is director with the SRM University, Haryana. He has over 22 years of varied experience in sales and marketing in media, education, FMCG, and IT sectors. He completed his graduation in electronics honors from Delhi University and received gold medal in his PGDBM. His research topic in PhD was consumer behavior. He has completed a 1-year diploma from IIM Lucknow in senior management program Global Leadership. He has won many awards and recognitions during his corporate journey. He has served in senior level positions in many organizations like NIT University, BML Munjal University, the Tribune Trust, Dainik Bhaskar Group, Midday, Indian Express, and ST Media Limited. Thank you for joining, Pankaj sir. Your presence is an honor. Thank you. Our next key speaker, Ms. Dharani Upadhyay. Dharani ji is founder and CEO of Fatado School of Music. Fatado School of Music is India's largest music educator. It is a brand which is synonym to music in our country. It has a 150-year-old rich legacy. Fatados has been working with the 200 plus leading schools of India. It has trained over 1 lakh students. It owns many renowned titles like Bandit, which is India's largest school level music competition to promote music talents across all schools. Other titles are Piano Concert, Cadence, Workshop, High Jump Training, FSM Exams, In-Center Recital, FSM Recital. It enjoys partnerships with renowned institutions like Berklee College of Music and NMIMS School of Performing Arts. We welcome you, Dharani ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you. And our last
Thank
key
you,
speaker,
Raju.
welcome, ma'am. And our last key speaker for this very special session, Jaswinder Singh ji. Jaswinder ji is founder and CEO of Wordsworth ELT. He has an experience of 30 years in the field of education and technology and has also served as a consultant to UNESCO on education. Wordsworth English Lab is designed for India and is a highly research initiative of ACT Univ Group. It is a trusted education company with 2 decades of service in technology education and training. Its expertise in technology, multimedia, and content development has been instrumental in presenting a world-class language lab solution for academia in India. In a short span of time, Wordsworth English Language Lab has managed considerable recognition across the country for its unique content and methodology. Over 3,000 installations in institutions across the country stand testimony of the quality in product implementation, training, and the continual service provided by ACT UNIV and its committed network of dealers. We welcome you, Jaswinder sir. Thank you for joining. So these
Thank
were
you,
the key
Raju. Thank
speakers.
you.
Welcome, sir. These were the key speakers for this session, and we have a very special guest for this session. Anil Rawalji. Anil Rawalji is co-chairman with Rawal Group of Educational Institutions, which is among the largest educational group of Delhi NCR. So they are running under the brand. They are running 10 different institutions, schools, and colleges, and teaching over 12,000 students. So he would be joining as a special guest. So with this, I would like to invite Anil Rawalji to share his experience and insights on the education policy of the central government in India. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome once again to the very revered speakers of the day who've joined us and the participants who part of this 100th leadership talk. We are really humbled and privileged with your presence. I'll walk you through the key reforms which have been proposed by the policy, and then we'll open the house for your opening remarks. I request the speakers to kindly restrict to around 1 minute for your opening remarks and 10 minutes for your detailed talk on the topic of your choice. So kindly allow me to share my screen. I'll quickly walk you through the key reforms which have been proposed by NEP. As you're all aware, this is the first education policy of the century announced around 34 years after the previous policy on education. So the major reforms which have been proposed in this policy include the pedagogical and curricular structure, which has now been changed from 10 plus 2 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So the first 5 years are the foundation stage. So this includes the 3 years of preschool and 2 years of classes 1 and 2. And this has been a very welcome. I would request you to kindly mute yourself. So the foundation stage includes the 3 years of preschool and 2 years of classes 1 and 2. And this is a very welcome reform because the first time policy has brought the preschool into the purview of Ministry of Education and NCF. The emphasis has been laid on early childhood care and education to help students develop social capacity, sensitivity, good behavior, courtesy, ethics, etc., and attain foundational literacy and numeracy. And a lot of emphasis has been laid on joyful pedagogy in this stage. Followed by 3 years of preparatory stage for learners of age group 8 to 11 years. The emphasis has been laid on introduction of formal but interactive classroom learning with activity-based pedagogy. And another highlight for these two stages is that it has been proposed that the medium of instruction should be the native language or the regional language. This is followed by 3 years of middle stage for learners of age group 11 to 14 years. Now here the subject teachers will be introduced and discussion of more abstract concepts and relations among different subjects will be encouraged. And it is from this stage that the vocational and skill development will be introduced. Followed by 4 years of secondary stage, 14 to 18 years of learners. Now the major highlight for this stage is the multidisciplinary study which has been introduced. So the silos of stream system which have been prevalent since the beginning of education system, that will be dissolved, and students will have a greater flexibility on picking up the subjects. So the focus is on holistic development of learners, infusing critical thinking. Experiential learning has been kept in the center stage for all the stages. Vocational courses will be introduced from class 6 onwards, carpentry, electric work, etc. Emphasis has been laid on hands-on learning, art integrated, sports integrated, storytelling pedagogies have been given due importance. Bagless days will be encouraged. So the aim is to shift from the rote learning and textbook-based teaching to more project-based pedagogies. Topic-centered and project-based clubs and circles will be introduced in all the schools. So science, maths, chess, drama, health and well-being, yoga, eco-debate, etc. Board exams will be redesigned and the standards will be set by an assessment body, Parak, performance assessment, review and analysis of knowledge for holistic development. And board exams will now have lesser stakes. And the aim is to modify them so that they assess the application of knowledge and not just rote learning. Students will be able to choose many of the subjects in which they want to take board examination depending on their individualized interests. Students will be allowed to take board exams on up to 2 occasions during any given school year, one the main examination and one for improvement. Now, another major reform is that in class 3, 5 and 8, a central body will be taking up the examination. So these milestones have been added so the learning outcomes can be assessed or the learning can be tracked so that proper remediation can be provided. The progress cards will be redesigned. The aim is to make them more holistic and 360-degree multi-dimensional report. So they'll be reflecting the progress and uniqueness of the learner and cover all the 3 domains, the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. And they will also include the self-assessment, peer assessment, mentor assessment, and the progress of the child in various activities undertaken during the assessment period. Now, in case of higher education, a national testing agency will be set up, which will be offering a common aptitude test. Now, the admission into the higher educational institutions will be based on this test. A multidisciplinary bachelor's degree with multiple exit options will be introduced. So the aim is that because of any reason, if the student has to drop out, so depending on the time the student has spent, he or she will be awarded a certificate after 1 year of study, diploma after 2 years, degree after 3 years, and degree with research credit after 4 years. Now, similarly, there are multiple entry options also because an academic bank of credit will be formed. And depending on the credits accumulated, the child can pick up from wherever he or she has left. MPhil courses will be discontinued and IITs also to make changes embracing diversity of learning. So the students have been kept center stage. So I would request our speakers to kindly give their remarks. I mean, let us know what is that you find most laudable about the policy or any concern that you would want to share with us, anything that you find is not very realistic or which will pose a major challenge when we come to its implementation. So I would request Mr. Surendra Kulkarni, sir, if you can have your opening remarks, sir.
Thank you, Rakhi. Yes, it's a laudable document. It's a visionary document. But let me, in this opening remarks, just focus on 3 problematic areas. The first one is the link to the higher education is very tenuous. There is an abrupt break between K-12 and K-13, and which has not been addressed adequately. So there will be still pressure on the students to focus on the exams in K-12 and forget about the education part of it. The second is, by and large, the document is prescriptive. It is descriptive in some parts, but unnecessarily prescriptive. That's not a job of a policy document. For example, you mentioned bagless days. That's not the business of a policy document. If you change the way you source your academic material, automatically you'll end up in a bagless situation. Similarly, it says you must have 50 hours of CPD. Why 50 hours? Why not 40? Why not 90? So I don't think a policy document should get into any kind of prescription. So there is some mix-up somewhere here. And the third, which is the most problematic area, and I've served in the government for long, so I understand bureaucracy, is the standard setting and accreditation that has to happen. There are many enabling organizations that need to be set up. You mentioned NAS and other things, the SSSA, etc. NISTA. So therefore, Parak and all. So please understand that how these are set up, whether they'll end up creating autonomy or another layer of autocracy, is a big, big question mark. So much for the opening remarks. There are, like I said, many positives, but our business is to look at which are the potential impediments rather than, slap our backs about all that is well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for pointing out your observations, and we look forward to coming back to you and knowing in detail your thoughts about the policy. Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. Deepak Madhok, sir, if you can have your opening remarks. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Second, yeah. Well, there are a lot of positives, as General Saab has rightly pointed out, and especially the ones which say that they are going to look into focus into junior classes, and then the teacher training programs, as well as rote learning, and then having the learning outcomes assessments, etc. But since we are educators and we have to fine tune ourselves to this NEP, I find the focus on language one of the negative parts. It should be like it should be left to the schools, and then autonomy. Autonomy is the creativity, and creativity only comes when autonomy is there. Then the most important part, which is a problematic area, is the implementation, because as we have seen with RTE, the words are not enough, action stone are not seen anywhere. And the coaching factors and are not addressed also. Why people are just concentrating on rote learning, and this coaching is also rote learning. You want to go through an exam, and you have an emphasis. School activity gets hampered a bit because many students don't go to school, and they just prepare for the coaching and the exams. So that kind of things could have been better. Well, these are some of the positives and the negatives, and we'll talk about it later.
Thank you, sir, for your remarks. I now request Padmini Sambasivam, ma'am, if you can have your opening remarks.
Um, Good evening, and thank you for inviting us. It's an honor, and it's our pleasure to interact with like-minded people to understand the policy better, and also to see how well we can take it forward. I would like to say that uh, 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 it's the plan that is people. I mean, that worries people. The policy, everybody is saying it's fine, but I think we waited 3 decades and a little more to get this policy together. And I must also say, maybe I'm not disagreeing, but maybe it's just my perspective, because sometimes when some of us speak, we might be speaking from the point of view of where we stand, but this policy is for the whole of the country. So what we have probably achieved at Wellham, so many other schools couldn't have even reached. So we should look at it like a vision document. I know that there are so many things that we will have to, kind of get there. But even the basics, for example, primary education, at least I'm really glad that for the first time, the purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows, and that thought at least has come through now. Earlier it was so conforming from the very beginning. From day one, education was like an assembly line and everybody had to do very similar things. At least they're giving you some scope today. I know there is ambiguity, but I think if we look at whatever is possible at each of our levels, if we can really get it through to give this child a little space to grow at their own pace, which was never the thing, because everybody had to fall in an assembly line. We were just products of one fit for all kind of a business. But there is some hope today. I do understand that even in the assessment, they have said no rote learning. But then what will be the kind of assessment? We are yet to experience something. But I think the first level is to maybe pick it up with a sense of enthusiasm, because I think that is the first step forward for all of us. Because if many of us don't, we think on the other side. Yes, we have to look at the other side, but the probably possible ones, I think we must focus and move it ahead, at least for the next generation of students. That's my understanding.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable thoughts. And very rightly, you've pointed out that personalization was somewhere lacking in the education system. And now at least we have started thinking in that direction, which is a very positive change. Thank you, ma'am. I now request Mr. Neeraj Bhatodia, sir, if we can have your opening remarks, sir.
Good afternoon, and Raki, and good afternoon to my co-panelists, General Kulkarni, Padmini, Mr. Madhok. Um, I think I'll talk about, there are issues obviously General has spoken about and Mr. Madhok has spoken about, but I do think that the policy makes all the right noises. It covers everything. that is possible, which is good, which needs to happen in education. If you look at the vision itself is very inspirational. And if we achieve it, obviously the demographic dividend that we are looking for will be achieved. So building a global best education system rooted in Indian ethos, of course, present government, and also if you look at our Gurukul system, that is what 21st century skills were all about, that being talked about here a lot. And to transform India into a global knowledge superpower. So it's a great vision to start with. And then it, apart from access and equity that was talked about in 86, it also talks of quality, affordability, and accountability, which is added here. Obviously, since 68 that we have this is the third policy document. Um, 86 policy document was changed a bit um, in 92, and then we had National Curriculum Framework in 2005. That document is still very much valid, although they are saying that it will be reviewed and we will have something, they said in 2020, we haven't got it yet, and CRT is working on it. And every 5 years they're going to do it. So that's really a great thing in that. It also gives, focus to teacher. It says the teacher is everything, they say guru hai, and all that is being talked about. They talk about how you need to make sure that the teacher does what he's supposed to do, that is teaching, rather than go and do various duties. And I'm not focusing just on public, the private school that we are part of. Mind you, most population is still more than 50% is in those schools studying. So it matters that what kind of teacher is teaching them. So it's great to see that. And the last bit I'll say about is that early child care and education has been really given thrust, because by the time the child is 6, it says that 85% of the brain has developed. So what you do at that time is most critical. And Anganwadis that were there were, really, they were there, but they did not do what our preschools are doing in private schools. So that needs to happen, which requires a lot of infrastructure. So policy is great in terms of what it says, but difficult part is now the implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very rightly pointed out. The difficult and the most significant part will be the implementation. And the aim behind these talks is actually that together maybe we will be able to pave a roadmap towards its successful implementation. Thank you, sir, for your insights. I now invite Dr. Pankaj Sharma for your opening remarks, sir.
First of all, good afternoon to all the panel members and the attendees. Compliment to Rajul and team, and especially Rakhi Verma ma'am and Rajul, the way they have taken this kind of discussions. And really, the 100, this today is the kind of speakers we have, really good speakers in terms of the quality and in terms of their experience. Being in from higher education, I have few things about this education policy. First of all, change is always good. But I think to understand that change, and there is a big road, big gap between that change, whatever change we want to bring, and how we are going to implement that. I think there are some schools where very independent, they can implement the policy, but there are some schools where they need a lot of help from other schools. As in higher education institute, I just want to say few things. They are very important. We have experienced at our campus at SRM Soripat. One is the vocational training, because I think that's something very important. Student can take a right kind of a career choice during their school time. Otherwise, we kind of a system we have, if you have more score, go to science. If less commerce, if less score or no choice, go to arts. I think that is something we need to change. This policy about a vocational training, where higher education institute can do a lot of efforts bringing corporates to the school level, and some schools are doing these activity. I am associated with one of the school, Tagore International School, Delhi. They are doing this internship at the level of 9th and 10th before they decide that which stream is they should opt for. Second, as an student, if you want to opt out during your graduation, there is always something for the student. Maybe it's a certificate, degree, diploma, so that you can go for the work and you can continue once you just want to break from the work and continue your higher education study. These two, three things are very important in this policy. But I think there are other things also which definitely we are going to discuss today in this forum. I'm looking forward to discuss and to learn a lot of new things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. And yes, there has always been a predefined hierarchy which has been into the place. If we talk about the streams, science and non-medical, non-medical kept on the top, and then commerce, and then maybe humanities. So we're all hopeful that with the advent of this policy, this perception will definitely change. Thank you, sir, for your remarks. I now invite Madam Dharini Padhai. Ma'am, if you can have your opening remarks.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon to one and all, and wonderful to be a part of this 100th session, and a lot of familiar faces, and warm wishes to all of you. I agree, to with most of your points of view, but the way I look at NEP is the way the education has to evolve for generations to come. I think, like Mrs. Padmini also rightfully said, I'm sure something new will always come with some gaps, with some things which are not very clearly defined or articulated. But as they say, change nothing and nothing changes. This is a great step in the right direction, and it is really going to open up a huge opportunity for all the educators to evolve and bring about an education system which will give children an opportunity to learn through experience, grow, evolve, experiment, try and discover what is it that they love to do, and choose something which is very close to their heart. And I think that is what education is all about. As educators, we all are serving our youth, our young ones, in offering them an environment where they can really, experience and create their own perceptions and their own belief systems as they grow along in a conducive, formative, and supportive environment. And I think NEP is just enabling that. Of course, when you really sit down to execution, I'm sure each one of you, who is a wonderful educator in themselves, knows what are the real challenges of bringing that about. When you have to bring it to life. But I still, I'm very hopeful, very optimistic about this change, and I'm sure this will, bring many good practices in the years to come. Thank you, Raki ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dharini ji, for your remarks. I now invite Mr. Jaswinder Singh, sir, if you can have your opening remarks.
Thank you, Rakhi and good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be on this eminent panel. Uh, my focus is going to be more on the language part. Dr. Madok has already talked about, the ambiguity of what they're going to do with the languages. Um, I'm going to focus a lot on that, where, they've started saying that the early years, it should be the mother tongue. How would it impact? What has happened to people? What is happening across the country, and especially in a country where we have more languages than anybody, I mean, all languages put together in the world. So that's one challenge area. But how are we going to address that? That is one. The second most important thing is I'm so happy that NEP 2020 has now looked upon on ECCE, because that is where the most important foundation years are. Um, Earlier, long back, that ECCE used to be in the mother's lap. That is where the early childhood development and learning was. Mothers are busy, we are going pretty fast. How is it that we're going to give that kind of care, what was there during the Gurukula areas, in the education system? Now, how do we bring in that love, the compassion, the social responsibility, love for humanity, understanding things in their own language? So a lot of that has to be worked on. I look forward to the discussion. My main point will be when I'll be given the 10 minutes, which are more important. Thank you so much, Rakhi ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, and we look forward to hearing from you in detail your thoughts. I would now invite Dr. Deepak Mathok for his detailed deliberation on the new education policy. Sir, if we can hear from you.
Thank you so much for inviting us, and really honored to be a part of this panel. Uh, as I said, the early education has been for the first time addressed. As everyone just said that it's 34 years we're waiting for this kind of a change, and some of the parts are really positive, uh, especially the ones which talk about interdisciplinary learning, and rote learning has been relegated, has now creative applications and all those words are the bylines now. And these are things looking into the future of the next generation, because we have to, but the most important part which I think this NEP has done is the teacher training focus. Teacher training was not, it was just another profession, and now you have focused on how the teachers are going to be trained, and the time, the tenure of the B.Ed has also been increased, because if you don't have good teachers, you don't have good students, and you have a huge teacher force, which is who are themselves uneducated to a certain point. You cannot have a teacher who knows cycling teach a child who dreams to fly. So that's the problem with our staff, and we need something for the future, because a classroom is a factory of the future, and it can affect eternity. Basically, teacher training and focus on teacher training and teacher training colleges, and then bringing the best minds into education, because education has to be the top priority of a country. Today, whenever we feel any challenge, we must come down to basic education, primary education, junior school education, foundation of the children, because everything is made in the mind of a child who's 6 years, 8 years, 10 years old. And after that, once it is done, he will never stone a school bus, he will never burn a barricade, he will never damage anything, and those are the formative years which we have not looked after for a very, very long time. So these two things, the early education and the teacher training, these occupy my mind, and I would say kudos to the policy for looking after these two things. Now, the third thing which comes to me is the National Testing Agency, which is a good thing. Now, there has to be a national testing agency plus a school gradation system. Now, it talks about how schools are being graded. It talks about how schools should be given point systems, and how we can find out, the parent can find out the best school of his choice. Uh, Classes 3, 5, and 8, testing of learning outcomes. This is very exciting. I'm very happy with this, because learning outcomes are suffering in India. A class 6 child doesn't know how to multiply, and a class 10 child only focuses on 2 or 3 subjects, which is not all-round education. He doesn't even go to the playground these days. That is also a place where you learn a lot of things. So that is another thing. Now, the focus on language, which is now, it is going to be one of the things which we are going to talk a lot about in the coming years, because anything done without taking into consideration the entire population of India, you cannot focus on something in the early years, especially because India is a huge country, as Jaswinderji very rightly said, and we should not jabardasti do something. You should let the schools have their own policy. You should prioritize your national language, but do not force people into it. Then the autonomy of private schools. You see, private schools comprise today almost about 20 to 25%. The rest are all government schools. And when it comes to government policies, private schools are implementing the government policies to a large extent, to a very large extent. And the example of RT, I can say it here, that RT is now enforceable in private schools, But where is the RT in government schools? Where is the RT in state government, RTE in state government schools? You don't even have drinking water. So what are we doing with RT? Where's the teacher staff students ratio? So when you cannot implement in your own backyard and you are only focusing on one section, so that's not going to work out, because only 20 to 25% schools are really working on RTE right now. Then you have the autonomy of private school, which is very, very important. I would always hammer for that, because creativity comes when your thoughts are independent. When your thoughts are not independent, you are forced to focus on something. Nothing can. The schools, the colleges, the educational institutions only develop if you have autonomy of thought. And autonomy of thought can lead you to a position where you can say that education is the realization of your own ignorance. How ignorant I am, I can only realize when I'm educated. So a lot of people don't want you to do that. And a lot of people should be given that kind of education. And it's not only schooling, it's education, it's creativity, it's autonomy, which should be the bywords of a developing country like India, because that is the magic word which is going to take you forward. Autonomy, creativity, and true education. The implementation of NEP is going to be a big challenge, that all the other respected panelists have spoken about it. And I feel that this is the place where everyone has to focus now. How is NEP going to be implemented? Because it's a wonderful vision document. It also goes into a lot of details, but how are we going to implement it? Is the basic Shiksha officer or the district education officer in every city, every district, are they qualified? Have they read it properly? Do they know the spirit? Do they have the do they have the resources to do it? I really doubt about it, because still a lot of things have to be, groundwork has to be done. Once again, I would like to emphasize that the rote learning thing has to stop when you are doing competitive exams also. More creative questions, something which is out of the book, and also you should have agencies, testing agencies. We can really test the children of their creative skills. The coaching nexus has now become a phenomenal monster all around schools, and children don't even go to schools actually. They just have those ghost schools running in many cities with big coaching centers, and these ghost schools even have hostels. They just keep you there, and you just study in the coaching centers in the name of in the garb of some school. So that big elephant in the room has not been addressed. This should have been addressed in this policy, and something should have been done to bring back school education into the focus. Because school education is not only going to school, it's learning in the classroom, learning from your friends, learning in the canteen, learning in the sports field. It's not only just taking data, downloading, loading data, you can do it on a laptop. So it's not, so that focus should be, I hope that something can be done about it. And I hope that something should have been, I don't know whether it is possible, but this is something which should be now focused into, and a lot of people are talking about it, how cities have grown around a coaching spirit. Cities have grown around a spirit in which children come, and the number of suicides in these cities, that is amazing, you know. That has to now come to an end. So these are some of my points. I feel a vision is always good, but action is more important, because as they say, education is not only learning, it's action. It's the translation of the vision into action. So with this, thank you so much, everyone, and my best wishes to all the panelists, and my best wishes to the 100th web series here today. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your very valuable. Yeah.
Just one thing, Deepak sir. In the last part of the session, we have received many questions, you know, so on these areas from many educators across countries. So we would like to present these questions to you all in the last part of the
Right.
session. Rakhi ma'am.
Right, right.
Thank you,
Thank
sir,
you.
for your very valuable insights. I would like to quote John Cotton Dana here: "Who dares to teach must never cease to learn." So, very rightly, you pointed out that it is very, very important for us to keep upgrading our teachers, make sure that they are able to match pace with the learners who are the digital natives, and the demands of 21st century skills is definitely changed. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your insights. I
Thank you.
now invite General Surendra Kulkarni, sir, for your insights and your thoughts, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Madhokji for his very lucid explanation of the implications of the NEP. But let me say that if the start point is to be a global powerhouse of knowledge, that implies that this is going to be an export-driven concept. Because we are 1/6 of the world's population, if all our population in the next 25 years does get the education we are looking for and the so-called demographic dividend, then there isn't going to be enough piece of the cake within this country. It will have to be outwards. So in the good old days, our people went out as indentured labor, whether to the sugarcane fields or anywhere else. The next wave already we had in the 60s, where our IIM and IIT graduates went out. But we will be exporting high-skilled people moving up the value chain. And you have already seen immigration policies of many countries reflecting this, that they will only accept high-skilled people in the future. But there is a great scope for our people to go out on a temporary basis or even as migrants in the future, if all this succeeds. There is a corollary to this. The bulk of our country today is an agrarian country. And it has been well established that the 40+% who work in the farmlands, to sustain India agriculturally, we don't need more than 14 or 15% people working in agriculture. As the educational levels go up, aspirational levels will change. And rather than working in the fields, and because the underpinning of all this will be out of technology, you will find more and more people wanting to move out of these labor-intensive jobs into what are, I would say, closer to white-collar jobs. So the good part of the policy is they're starting young with the early childhood education. The problem is, who's going to teach them? They are saying the Anganwadi person will teach them. Are you really serious about this? No. So the focus on teacher training at that level, which is the very basic level, has not even been addressed adequately in a policy document, forgetting the implementation part of it. That is going to pinch us in the years to come. Then as you move up the chain, they are saying that they will organize national testing at 3rd, 5th and 8th grade. They must lay down the standards and allow the schools or any body of schools to organize these tests. The moment this has to be done centrally at a national level, you will find it will run into its own hurdles. The process of implementation will kill a great idea. So therefore, whereas we are starting very well at the bottom of the pyramid, as we move up, we are creating problems. Why? Because the bottom of the pyramid is underpinned, as I said, by technology. It gives us the advantage of reach. It gives us the advantage of quantity and democratization of information. It gives us the advantage of quality. A top of the line teacher from anywhere in the world can deliver a lesson to the most remote village of India. And it provides coaching online. Only thing is, this covers the academic side of it. As far as holistic education is concerned, which involves sports and all, ironically, in rural schools, it's easier to organize sports than in urban schools, which are built in a couple of acres in a city, because there are enough playing fields and the natural tendency to go out and play. But therefore, underpinning the entire NEP success is a group called the teachers. And today, like you have various faculties by which you do induction into university programs, and I deal with the career guidance programs of my children when they're finishing school. Virtually none of the major universities are coming to us and offering us graduate courses in education the same way that they offer us in other subjects. So unless this itself becomes an aspirational thing, आपका बच्चा क्या करने वाला है? He's going to go into education. You are never going to get, there's no use crying for sympathy and saying teachers should be recognized. No. The teaching profession has to create itself into a position where it's valued as much as that of an engineer or a chartered accountant or anybody else. So making a 4-year B.Ed program is not the sole solution. It's a step in the right direction. What after those 4 years? Will you have a university placement fair like you have in other disciplines? Will you segregate the better teachers from the average teachers? Will there be faster career paths for them? If you leave it to the market, this will happen. But the moment you have this over-supervised thing, and in worrying about the people who are left behind, please understand, no country drove itself out of poverty by making everybody else poor. You have to have centers of excellence, and you also have to have affirmative circumstances where those who are less privileged are brought up to the scratch as far as possible. Now, the NEP is supposed to be looking at the future. And as Philip Kotler famously said, the future is not ahead of us. It has already happened. So if this is looking at coming into force by 2047 fully, please remember 2 generations of students would have passed in between. And with some of the top of the line companies today offering jobs without a university degree, companies like Tesla and others are offering you, Google are offering you jobs straight out of school based on your capacity and skills. Then we need to see that can we have the patience to wait till 2047 for everyone to catch up, or that you have parallel streams running at different speeds. So you can have a sports car running and you can have a Maruti 800 also chugging along. You know, there should be a road for each of them. So why is this future a problem of the future is a problem because there are 3 elements out of sync with each other. There is a student who has to live in the world of tomorrow. There is the curriculum that is defined today. And even if every 5 years the NCERT puts reset buttons, and that is very ambitious. Last time it happened was in 2005. So then you have a curriculum which is current, a student in the future, and a pedagogy from the past. Now don't go by some of the schools like Padmini mentioned. Some of the schools may have come to very current and up-to-date pedagogy. But the bulk of the country is still following the pedagogy that was followed when I was in school. So therefore, you're creating 2 generation gaps in the very structure of your education. And out of the 3 things, the pedagogy, the curriculum, and the student, the easiest to tackle is the pedagogy. So therefore, the clear thrust of the NEP over the next 5 years or its implementation must rest on transmitting pedagogy to the remotest parts of the country. The other thing we have to look for the future is, in my generation, we grew up to be job seekers. The way automation has come in, the traditional jobs are obviously dwindling or even vanishing. New jobs are definitely coming up. But do you want your student of the future, and in which you want him to learn creativity and critical thinking and all that, to be a job seeker or a job creator? And if he's going to become a job creator, he's also going to do good for society because he'll employ himself and a few others. So therefore, the thrust of education, you can say vocational training and all. Unfortunately, vocational training is still being pitched at the level of someone going to the ITI or something and saying you can drop out and come back and catch up, have a diploma for now. No, that vocational training must result in an entrepreneurial mindset. From an employee mindset, you have to move into an entrepreneurial mindset collectively. And this has to be driven all the way. There are many of the well-known business houses where the owners and all had very marginal education, formal education, and they're very successful. So an entrepreneurial mindset doesn't need a stamp of a PhD or a fancy degree at all. It is the way we do business. So therefore, we need to shift from a teacher-centric to a student-centric to a self-driven learning situation. Today, you know how social media and influencers attack you. They attack you at a personalized level. If that is to all your ads and all come to you targeted at a personalized level, if that has already happened in the world, then your student also has to be driven into that direction. Now you can't press a button and put him into it overnight by publishing a policy. And this cannot wait for certain other structures to come up, which I spoke about earlier. So this push needs to be given now. And they have spoken about twinning of schools. I don't think we need to twin schools. You need to twin teachers. And in fact, in multiples, you have good resource persons, they can reach out to 15 schools and create, like train the trainers. In 15 different schools, they can transfer this directly, irrespective of the economic situation, as long as technology is available to them. So I want to highlight a few mega trends which are there in the world. And these are very important. And as I spoke to you about the jobs, one of the things that I think everyone ought to read is the publication by the World Economic Forum called The Future of Jobs. It's very illustrative of where we should be headed. And I'm afraid even the so-called well-known schools are sluggish in its response to that. But what are these mega trends? Firstly, disruption was always there. Don't see the pandemic. That's an extreme circumstance. But disruption was already happening. And you have seen it over the years. In 2005, we had YouTube coming. Ever since the video has come, it's changed the face of everything, including education. And then you had in 2008 onwards, things like Uber, after that economic crash, the Ubers and the Airbnbs and all coming up, where you can create a business model without having a product of your own. But the rate of disruption is on the rise with each generation. So what is this result in? And that's a mega trend. The rate of obsolescence is also rising. So if in your father's time you had an ambassador car, perhaps he lived and died with it. You will not have the same car through your lifetime. Next, the virtual world is invading the physical world. And whereas they can coexist and what they call the phygital world is fine, but you will find that the virtual world is dominating the physical world. And in reality, we have to live in the physical world. So therefore, drawing this fine balance between the two is an important job for our educators. Innovation and aspirations are egalitarian today. They are not elitist, which is why you hear about a Mohammad Siraj, where he came from, and a Dhoni where he came from, and they are where they are today, because they were aspirational. The same has to happen in education. It can't only be connected with one sport or few sports. It cannot be elitist. So the opportunities have to be made egalitarian. Achievement may, of course, be elitist because only the good and the best will climb to the top. The VUCA world, which I think all of us understand, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world is known to us, but it enhances entropy. That's the problem. And hence, leadership intervention will have an increasing role to play. And as Peter Drucker famously said, that in any organization, underperformance, chaos, and all, I'm sort of paraphrasing him, but he said the only thing which is different in any organization is leadership. So training future school leaders is not to build them in capacity by 50 hours of CPD, but to be able to imbue them with a sense of vision as to where to take their school or their education in the years ahead. That is the real challenge. So, having said this, I'd like to just conclude by saying, and I spoke about leadership as a very, very important thing. I'm saying this, I'm in education, and in my years of experience in education, unlike all my other fellow panelists who are experts, I'm still at the foundational and numeracy stage. So I'm not carrying any past baggage on my shoulders. I'm a new entrant into the education. I'm going alongside with NEP in this world. But the crux of leadership is this, is to identify a problem before it becomes an emergency. And the pandemic was a classic case. Technology was around. Technology was suddenly discovered by many people after the pandemic hit you. why did not many of the schools who had the capacity not have already trained their faculty in the extensive use of technology? And thereafter, because then switching over to this online business would have been a matter of 24 to 48 hours. So with these things, I'd like to leave you behind. The NEP is a great document. It's a great vision for the country. But those of us who are in a better position need to take the lead and drive this transformation and facilitate the success of this policy by setting examples for others to emulate. So thank you very much, Rajul, and thank you, Rocky ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your very lucid vision on NEP. And very rightly you've pointed out, and it has been said that the major challenge with the prevailing school system is that students of today, they are attending schools of yesterday, taught by teachers from the past, preparing them for the future. So as you've also pointed out, we'll have to definitely create a continuum when we're talking about end-to-end transformation of education. Thank you, sir, for your insightful thoughts. I now invite Madam Padmini Sambhavisavam, sorry. Ma'am, please, if we can have your thoughts.
Yeah, good afternoon and good evening. And I know my name is quite a tongue twister for most.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
It is Sambhavisavam, and it's Sanskrit, so it should be easy for a person from this side. So anyway, I've had two exceptional speakers before me who would have almost, and you started with as a moderator saying all that is there in NEP. So the most important thing is I'm going to just share a couple of things that I believe would really work in time. And of course, we have to have trust in the process. We will fail. When I say we will fail, we will not be able to reach out there. Maybe that is why they said something like 2047, when most of us who are sitting here may not even be, I don't know, maybe we'll be around, but maybe not very active. But the fact of the matter is any change, it takes a while. And if you look at today, everything has been said about, there's huge information around. Earlier, the only repository of information was the teacher. Today, we don't require teachers for information. We require teachers to actually help us sieve the information. There's so much of news that is fake. There's so much of information that is abundantly around. We do not know what to sieve and what not to. So the whole idea of the teacher being a facilitator is not anymore a choice for the facilitator. I can tell you that 15 years before, this idea of a facilitating teacher was something, a very big term. But today I can tell you that you have no choice but to be a facilitator. And even at the very beginning, I want to share that in my 1-minute speech, I said very clearly that I am not speaking from the point of view of Vellum, because it is one of the most affluent schools, and doing well for ourselves, not just because of our affluence, but because of our solid ethos. I'm talking about this vision document in the context of whether it is possible to unfold this vision across India, whether it is a government school or a proprietary run school or whatever. The crux is this. What is the problem? If you see the whole I agree with General Kulkarni on his last statement saying the fundamental need for any of this vision to come true would be the leader. They will, because very often, most of the things that we speak about education, we talk about teacher development. We talk about students understanding something. We talk about educating parents on something. But the fact of the matter is, how many of us leaders are instructional leaders? People who are still in touch with classroom issues and education. We get thrown into things as administrators. Maybe we take a couple of classes. But we have to be lifelong learners. And the most important thing that I will have to say, let's start from ECCE. I'm just delighted that they have even said that mother tongue or bilingual can be utilized. It is so sad that we have a colonial hangover and we believe English will have to begin on day one, which is sad. And we also have another issue. Only if people can actually converse in English, if with an accent that is absolutely either Brit or American, we are even accepted. Most probably, people are not even looking at what we are saying, but how we are actually presenting it. There is an issue with respect to English because we believe from day one, English has to be imposed on children. But look at what we have done over a period of time. A little child comes with a lot of hope, lot of things that they are exploring, they are seeing. But at home, if it is your mother tongue, how do we do it? We first listen, then we speak, then maybe we read and write. But in English, you don't, there are so many students in India who don't have any opportunity to listen to English at home. What they do is they start with the ABC's written work. They write, they read, and then they do it. And when myelination is not through till 5 years, when your neuromuscular system is not ready to write, we are whittling every sense of a need to study or learn and explore very early in life, and then make them write all the sleeping lines and the standing lines or whatever we taught. But unfortunately, we are so amazed and addicted to content delivery than to concept delivery. And that is what, to some extent, I feel this vision has addressed. Because for us, information is the key. The more a child knows a content, we believe they are bright. But the biggest thing is, you look at how things are being delivered in most schools. And unless the leader sitting says that is not important, it will not change, because people are looking at scores. People are looking at today, everybody is a 99% or 100%. Imagine in DU, if you have to get in, you have to have 100%. Do you really believe any child is 100% in any subject for that matter? So there is a complete disconnect between the two. At one end, we are talking about something very, very high, but another end, we want to. So fundamentally, I'm just grateful and glad that that the vision says, let's look for core competency. And they are also saying they will do something with the assessment. Because in schools like ours, till class 9, we would ask questions which are like, evaluatory by nature, which are application, which are analysis, which will be able to generalize, and which is not conforming to one answer. Because creativity is not conforming. I think Mr. Deepak said that. It is true. But look at all our answers. Answers are all one. Expected answers are keywords in the assessment finally when you're getting scores. At one end, you want your child to be creative. At another end, an assessment procedure which is completely rote, and that is what they're at least claiming that they will move out of. So the question is, some of us who have been doing this for a while, to some extent, are just happy that we are moving in the right direction. Not for a moment have I said it will not have hurdles. It will have hurdles. But at least till the age of, the first 5 preparatory years, if a child can walk into school and not be forced to think in one particular direction, because very early in life, any answer, every question is having only one answer in most schools. Look at the fill of the blanks that is offered, or even reasons. Even reasoning and analysis that we are talking about in schools is a known reason. The answer or the reason is given in the textbook, and that reason is being asked. We are never taught situation oriented. The biggest thing is, therefore, like General Kulkarni and all of them spoke, it is about teachers looking at it differently. But you cannot expect a teacher to look at it differently when they have studied it one way. And with the same books, I studied integers in class 5 and 6. Today, also the children study the same. It's not the concept that I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is, where else are integers used? You teach Boolean algebra. Who is talking about application? They are talking straight about how to solve. Why do you think children know the operations, but they do not know to comprehend? It's simply because we don't stabilize language before bringing in further concepts. We are not looking at knowledge, comprehension, and then application analysis. There's a huge disconnect because we are going on adding content after content at each level, and we are not just seeing whether these points of exit from one level of class 3 to 5 and then 5 to 6, whether they are even equipped. So in this world, everybody agrees the only thing we are sure of is change. And can you imagine when we got out of college, we never thought anything called social media would exist. But there are managers today, so which means there's a whole lot of job that is available that we did not even think we might be part of. But the fact of the matter that I would say is, we say vocational courses are not, is good or bad. It's a question that is asked. That's because of societal understanding. Now, who is going to change it? And how can everybody be an entrepreneur? Some of us will have to be followers. Some of us will have to be doers. Why should I be an entrepreneur alone? So the whole idea as a leader, when I give it, we have to tell everybody, you do your bit and find yourself. You might be one cog in a machine, but you are a very important part in the machine. Every member cannot be a leader. Some of us will have to be followers. A leader will have to be a listener, and a leader will have to continuously say, it's not this point that you have to reach. Find the best from within yourself. So the biggest issue that I have today is, at one point we say it's a great document. At one point we say it's fantastic that we are connecting to our roots. Let's have self-esteem, everything we are saying. But along with the 3 R's, let's understand it is not enough if you look at the 3 R's, but the 3 H, the hands. It has to do it. The skill will have to develop using your hands. The head is used. Intellect is the only thing that we are pushing for, unfortunately. We are only asking for the intellect to go cleaner and keener, sharper and sharper. But that cannot be conniving and cunning, and you cannot get them there. What is the most important thing and the need of the hour is not anything else but actually educating the heart. That is our problem today. We don't have patience. We do not want to look at something which is possible. We don't want to become a team. Our intellect we use to say, what are the various ways where things could fail? I agree, everything will take a little time. But as a leader, if I'm going to show one moment that this NEP is a little tricky, it's all beautiful vision, but it cannot be done. And I'm telling you, the rest of my followers will immediately say, my own leader does not have anything, in it. I don't have to really worry about it. She's going to be half-hearted with this whole business, so I don't have to try. And the beautiful thing today is, I really appreciate the way we have risen. We spoke about change. We spoke about things saying, so many things are changing. Why are we even stuck with something else? So the point I'm making is, the entire curriculum that is given to us is only a point of reference. Nobody must be bound to a book. I need to know integers to understand something else. I'm not saying solving is important, but to be able to generalize. Take a word called change. They're talking about breaking silos for the first time. I'm absolutely delighted. But when a teacher goes in to talk change, they talk change maybe in English. Look at the change in the language that has happened. A mathematics person will have to talk about change in the aspects of how formulas are used or whatever. If it is a physical change, if it's a chemical change, if it is a change in ideology, in history, and the word change, a simple word, can break silos. But unfortunately, every teacher walks into class and just talks about her supposed change that she is supposed to do. But I won't blame them. I think we have to change. We have to ask for these things also, and we have to keep abreast. It is not difficult because we are all under one curriculum, under the NCF we are all doing. But look at the variety of schools that we have. Each school is blossoming in one particular way. Maybe we have to be a team a little more. Maybe we have to share our knowledge a little more. Maybe we have to come together a little more. It is not impossible. And the second thing that I'm saying is, they did talk about that the workforce might go out. We are talking about global citizenship today. We are all sitting at home and working. Maybe I don't have to migrate. I will sit here and speak. I'm not even meeting you all in person. There will be differences. There will be a change. But what is it that you're asking your child? I can never give my child all the skills in the world, except one solid skill that I have to give is self-esteem, confidence to adapt, and confidence to understand that there is no one point of achievement in this world. You don't have to be a top person to feel an achiever. I think the whole why have we all lost is because we do not have leaders who are role models today. Largely, look at our political world. Earlier, we could look up to people like Gandhi. We could look up to his ways of living. But today, we have a genuine problem. Because if you're in the opposition, you have to oppose everything. We never talk issues. I think my biggest thing for this vision document is, they're talking about 3 big things. They're talking about every stakeholder. They're saying, let the student have a little bit of freedom. Let the student choose. And there was one gentleman who said that last is arts. I am so proud. You can see liberal arts is embraced with so much love. And Velamites do extremely well on the outside world as not just, and they take a whole range of fields. So therefore, again, it is about how we put the art as a C-section group of children and A section as science is our thought. And the more we interact with parents about it as to how liberal arts at the end of the day, how can an economist work in this world without having compassion and ethics is my fundamental question. Economics has maths, it has statistics, it has an understanding of the world. You will have to have an understanding of psychology and history. If you do not have all of this, plain maths, plain science will not work. I might find what a black, I'm a science person, by the way. I love science. But look at how many girls are there in STEM. If you look at AI, if you look at coding, if you look at anything, there is a stigma, there is a stereotype that you and I will have to work on. Okay, so I would particularly say teacher development, it is in our hands. We can make it. We can all bring ourselves together to help. It will be maybe slow, it will be maybe steady, but then the point is, I hope it will be steadily moving for a better world. But one thing is, we are not trying to equip our child to and give answers for everything in the future, but we are giving him one big or her one big trait, a self-confident, adaptive natured individual will rule this world. But if you're going to feel small by means of your position, or if you feel I cannot take this job, and I'm telling you, one skill is not going to work anymore. I have to be multi-skilled. It's like season. People like me for this, they might take me. They might just have one part of me needed. So we have to brace ourselves today to decide that this education that we are talking about will have to educate the heart equally as much as the hand and the head. And more importantly, we'll have to believe in this vision to make it work. And we will fall into big, hurdles. But I think together we may not be able to give the full vision, but even 1 inch ahead, just like we have at least come to this vision, I think we will be able to see it. But if each school decides the